So today is October 15th, 2018, and I'm with Larry Slim, the Hammerman, Larry Farmen. Larry, thank you very much for agreeing to tell us about yourself. Can you tell us a little bit about your family history, about a little bit where your mother and father came from and what they did?
My dad was from Niagara Falls, and my mom was out here in Limerick with her mom.
What was your mother's name?
Rose.
Rose. Her last name?
Benyai.
Okay. And you had told me they came from Hungary originally.
Budapest.
They came from Budapest. When did her family come over to America?
I have no idea. I have no idea. That's long before my time. But my mom was the best. She used to make aprons. And I was the salesman for the aprons.
What did the aprons look like?
Oh, she made all kinds. And I told her the one time, I said, Mom, I want you to make me some black aprons. She said, black? I said, yeah, you can put a little white trim on them. We'll buy a binding. And she said, what's that for? And I said, Mom, just make them. And I used to go up DeKalb Pike where all the rich people lived.
DeKalb Pike near Norristown.
Yeah. That's where all the Jewish people lived, and they all had money. And they all had maids. And I knew the maids wore black. So I went up with my black aprons with my white trim on them, and I said, I knock on the door. And I said, would you like to buy some aprons that my mom made so we could buy some groceries and have something to eat? Oh, Bill, look at this cute little boy out here selling aprons that his mom made.
About how old were you when you were doing this?
10 or 12.
So this would have been probably in the 40s, correct?
Yeah. And I always sold all my mom's aprons, and she couldn't believe that I sold these black aprons, because that's what all the maids wore, black. The black aprons. And my mom was the best. I loved my mom, and I miss her to this day.
Now, you were, at the time, were you living around Norristown?
I lived on Willow Street, the 1500 block of Willow Street in Norristown. And that was one block over from DeKalb Pike.
Go ahead, continue.
Where all the rich people lived. That's my daughter Penny.
Hi, Penny. You lived in did you have a house when you were living on Willow Street?
Yeah, it was a row house. It was a row house, and at that time, all the so-so people lived on Willow Street. And across the street is where the black people lived. They weren't allowed to live on our side of the street. And one street over was Powell Street, and that's where the Jubies lived. And we couldn't live over there where they lived. It was all segregated.
So you are a Norristown boy.
Well, I was born in Niagara Falls.
Okay.
My mom said they were fishing right below the falls. And when I asked her where I was born, and my mom said they were fishing, my dad and her were out in a boat right below the falls. And my dad hooked something, and he brought it in. He hooked me by the diaper, and that's where they caught me, and that's where I was born, in Niagara Falls.
Now your father, what did he do?
He was a truck driver for R.J. Krathamel in Norristown.
And he drove for them all his entire career?
Most that I know of. That's all I can remember. But he would do anything for anybody. He drank too much. but he would do anything for anybody, and he would give anybody anything they wanted.
Mm-hmm.
He was a good-hearted guy. Just his only problem was he drank too much, and when he would come home from the bar stewed, and he would sit in the chair, and my mom would go. And I'd go all through his pockets and get any money that was in there. And the next day he'd say, "Damn, I thought I had some money left."
Of course, the times were hard back then, right?
Kinda. They weren't hard for me. It was what it was. And like I say, my mom sold aprons to make ends meet, and I used to sell them to the Jewish people up on DeKalb Pike.
Did you have any brothers and sisters then?
I had one sister,
Mm-hmm.
and she was very intelligent,
What was her name?
Shirley.
Shirley.
But my mom couldn't believe when I told her to make me black aprons, because that's what all the maids wore up in the Jewish section of DeKalb Pike.
Now you Shirley was an older sister or a younger sister?
She's a little older. What, a year or two older.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you
But she was always on the honor roll.
You were the youngest then of the siblings.
I was, yeah, well, it was only two of us.
Mm-hmm.
And like I say, in the Norristown High School, when they were giving out the awards, and they called my name, and everybody looked around. Half the time he's either swimming or fishing down the Schuylkill. Lawrence Farmen gets the award of least likely to succeed in life. And the whole school started laughing and clapping and whatnot, and I stood up and I went like that. And they all shut up. And I said, "I will be the best in the world at something, and I will be a millionaire."
Let's go a little bit earlier than high school. Do you remember where you went to elementary school?
Yeah, John Hancock School. It was down in the ghetto.
Did you have any close friends that you remember from those days when you were, young tyke?
No, not really. There was a little black girl that lived down the street, Jean Spence. And I thought she was cute. It's like my family didn't have any prejudice for anybody. And my mom and I were walking down the street one day, and here comes cute little Jean Spence. She said, "Hi, Larry." And I said, "Hi, Jean." My mom said, "You like her, don't you?" I said, "Yeah, she's cute."
After school, I know you mentioned you go down and maybe fishing or whatever, but what else would you do as a kid?
Well, I tried to make money.
Even as a kid?
Oh, yeah. And along with selling my mom's aprons, all the guys used to go fishing down the Schuylkill River.
That must have been pretty close then. You'd walk down to the river?
It was about a mile.
Mm-hmm.
And I see once in a while a guy get his line snagged, and he put new hooks and new sinkers on it. So I thought, thinking, must be a lot of hooks and sinkers out there. So when they all went home for dinner, I took an old Christmas tree out there and tied it to a rock out there where they all cast. And they were getting snagged on this Christmas tree. And when they went home, I went out and got my Christmas tree out and took all the hooks, sinkers, lures off of it. And then I went into the hooks, sinkers, and lures business. And I was selling them.
Uh-huh. Were you doing this by yourself, or did you have any?
No, by myself.
Mm-hmm.
And they had the canned heaters down there. You know what a canned heater is? What?
Can heater like a sterno.
Yeah, well, the canned heaters used to live under the bridge in Norristown.
Yeah.
And they bought this sterno. And they used to mix it up somehow and boil it in water, and they made booze out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they used to use to drink.
Were these hobos?
I guess you could call them hobos. They all lived underneath the bridge there, and the one main bridge that goes over from Bridgeport to Norristown. They used to live under there, and that was Sterno was what they.
Was that near railroad tracks back then, or?
Yeah. There's a train station down there at Norristown. It was right near there.
Mm-hmm. What else can you tell us about your childhood? What do you remember it being particularly rough, or was it a happy childhood? How do you think? What do you remember about it?
Scouts.
Yeah, it wasn't a problem. Everybody got along with everybody, and like I say, I went to school. It was predominantly black school, and there were no Jubies there. The Jubies all went to the higher class schools.
Did you go? Now you went to elementary school, Hancock, and then you said you went eventually to Norristown High. But was there a junior high school you attended as?
Yeah, Rittenhouse.
Mm-hmm.
Rittenhouse. I went to Rittenhouse, and I was just getting by the skin of my teeth. I think I got left back in the 4th grade or something like that, but I said I did all right. And my sister was very intelligent. She used to help me with a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. Her name was Shirley.
Right. Did you remember any teachers, particularly good teachers that you were fond of, or any bad teachers? Any of your teachers?
The only teacher that I liked was my shop teacher. I think his name was Henry. And I liked shop. That was the only thing that made sense to me, learning how to do something to make some money.
Mm-hmm.
What do I give a shit what Christopher Columbus did? I mean, what profit it is for me?
Mm-hmm.
Christopher Columbus and all that crap. And I used to have a little girlfriend, a little Italian girl, used to do my homework for me.
How old were you at the time?
I was 12.
You were born in 1934.
Yeah.
So you really were in elementary school, and you were a young kid during the war.
Yeah.
World War II. Do you remember much about that? Rationing?
I know when I was getting bigger, and it was the Korean War, and they were drafting everybody. And about that time, I wanted to find out what girls were about. Because I knew nothing about girls, except they were cute.
Yes, you would have been an older teenager, maybe 17, 18 years old.
Yeah, and my dad said, no, you can, and I went with this girl, and he said, no, you can't go with that girl because you're going to get drafted and probably go over there and get shot. Well, I didn't want to go in the Army. I liked the water. So I went down and signed up for the Navy so I could get my hitch over with so I could find out what girls were about. And I waited and I waited and I waited. And all the time I was waiting, I was hanging out with these girls. I was getting rigor mortis, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So I went down to the Navy board and I said, how come you didn't call me? I waited and waited and waited, and everybody's getting drafted and nobody's calling me. The guy said, where do you get your clothes? I said, I have them made over at the Bridgeport Pants Factory. He said, exactly, or my mom makes some of them. He said, exactly, we don't have uniforms to fit you. I was 6'8½". And they didn't have uniforms to fit me, and that's why I never got called into the service.
When did you remember being the tallest in your class, or the tallest among your peer group?
I was always the tallest.
You were always the tallest. Were your parents tall?
No. No. I think the Iceman was tall.
So you were tall even in elementary school and growing up?
Yeah.
And when did you top 6 foot?
I don't know, but back then I always wanted to play basketball, and I was the tallest guy around. And they didn't take me to play. That's because all the well-to-do kids got picked. So I got a team together with the local boys, and we had a scrimmage game. My dad's company sponsored us, R.J. Krathamel, and bought us uniforms. And we had a scrimmage against the Norristown High team the year they won the state championship, and we beat them. That was us lower income people.
Did you ever play football then with Norristown?
No.
Basketball was your sport.
Yeah. And my dad put a basketball net out at our house, and we used to out in the back of the garage, and we always used to play out there.
You were still living at Willow?
Yeah.
Okay.
But that was very segregated back then. Like I say, the black people couldn't live on our side of the street, and we couldn't live on DeKalb Street because that's where all the Jubies lived, and it was all segregated.
What else do you remember about Norristown when you were young?
Well, it was segregated. Like I say, the Jewish people lived on DeKalb Street, the black people lived on the other side of Willow Street, and us common folk lived on this side of Willow Street.
Were there trolleys and
Oh yeah. There was a trolley that went from Norristown, the train station at Norristown, all the way up the other end of town was a trolley. And they had buses.
How about the businesses? A lot of businesses and factories?
Well, they were mostly in Bridgeport. I worked at a yarn place. I forget what the name of the yarn place was.
Bra place.
Huh?
But the bra place.
Oh yeah, I worked at a bra place first, where they make brassieres.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to cut snaps. You used to have this thing that gives it, and it cuts the snaps for the girls.
Mm-hmm.
And this room was filled with women with sewing machines. Snap boy, snap boy! And I used to have to run snaps to them so they had snaps to sew on the bras.
How old were you about that time?
14, 15.
So this was after school you'd do this, or weekends? And
Yeah, well, after school and weekends.
yeah. Did you do any other jobs? Any other odd jobs at that age?
I went down to Blue Mill Riding Academy, where the kids used to rent horses and take it out on the trail.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't rent a horse. I rented a pony and cart.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to take it up to Norristown and sell rides to the kids. It was like a nickel. And that's how I made some money selling rides on the pony carts.
So you were always looking for a way to make a nickel.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
A nickel was big money.
Oh yeah. Like I say, well, my mom's aprons and the cart rides, the pony rides. I forget what else I did.
Fishing horse.
Huh?
The fishing horse.
Oh yeah, the fishing
And the
lures
fishing tour. Yeah, so you were anything you could do.
to make money.
Did you share it with your mom then? The money that you made?
My mom wouldn't take my money. I used to keep it in my bureau drawer down below, and I used to have that much money in the bureau.
In coins?
Yeah.
Pennies, nickels, dimes, a
Yeah.
few quarters?
Yeah.
And what would you do then after you collected all this money? Just save it.
No, the fact that I had it was good enough. That made me happy that I had it. And I knew I could buy anything that I wanted because I had it. And being you have the ability, the need was not gnawing at you to get it.
Mm-hmm.
And like I say, my mom made all my clothes.
Now, you said your father, of course, was a truck driver. Was he on the road a lot? Out of town?
Well, he was local.
Hmm.
He was local. R.J. Krethamel. He was local. He was a good-hearted guy, but he just drank too much.
Mhm.
And when he'd come home from the bar, and when I got big, my mom said, "Go up to the tap room, get your dad." And I used to go up in the tap room, and they said, "Jack, your kid's here. You better get moving." And when he got home, and I go all through his pockets, and any money that was in
Yeah.
there, I would give it to my mom.
What kind of relationship did you have with your dad? What kind of,
Not too good.
you know?
Not too good. All I remember him doing is hitting me till one day he went to hit me and I was looking down at him. And I said, "Don't hit me." He said, "Why?" I said, "'Cause I'll deck your ass." I said, "Those days are over," and that was the last time he ever hit me.
He was athletic.
Did was he difficult with your mom? Did he treat your mom with respect?
Pretty much. Pretty much. Yeah, my mom was a great person. I love my mom.
And you had, and of course you said your sister Shirley,
And she was the intelligent one.
and so she stayed in school, and she was a good student.
Yeah. She always got A's and I got F's.
What happened? When she graduated? After she graduated, what did she do?
I don't know.
She didn't go to college.
No, she didn't go to college.
Mm-hmm.
But like I say, when I was going to Norristown High School, I was working at the Bridgeport Pants Factory, and that was a couple miles away, and I had to hustle when I got out of work to get up to the school
Mm-hmm. So you were working in the mornings?
at night.
Oh, at night.
At night. And I get done in the morning.
Boy, you must. Then no wonder you must have been a poor student. You were probably half asleep.
The only thing that I really liked in school was shop. That's the only thing that made sense to me.
Did you make anything in shop that you kept? You remember?
No, I was in an electric shop,
Uh-huh.
and we learned how to rewind motors.
Mm-hmm.
And that made sense to me. And I liked Mr. Henry. He was a nice guy.
He was an Eagle Scout.
So, yeah,
He was an Eagle Scout.
he was an Eagle Scout.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I did like the Boy Scouts, and I got to be on the council at Delmont.
You now, was this like the Norristown Boy Scouts?
Yeah. Yeah, I love the Boy Scouts. That's another thing that made sense to me. And then I got to be a lifeguard at Delmont. You know where Delmont's at?
You're Perkiomen.
Okay.
That's all. I belong to Perkiomen.
Mm-hmm. So you had school, you had part-time jobs, you had your own interests.
I had my mom's aprons. I had pony rides. I had my fishing lures,
the bras.
the bras, and I worked at a bra factory.
What about the turtle shells at the camp?
Oh, I used